Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Kayden Show, today's best country mix. And joining me right here is Ronan Gallagher. Hey, Ronan, how you doing today?
Hey, Kayden, very good. Thank you very much. Feeling good.
That's good to hear. So, kind of tell us a little bit on how you got your start in music.
I started late in music. I didn't start till my mid 50s, late in life. And I kind of got started. I bought a guitar for my kids, which they never used, a small little $60 guitar from a mail order. And one day I was sitting at home having a midlife crisis, and I thought, what can I do that might, relieve this? Picked up the guitar, started to play and strum and learn how to play the guitar. And then a few weeks later, I was in a train station, a local train station. And I met a kid who was heading off. It was like after the bank crash. It was a kid heading off to Australia, actually, a long way away. He was emigrating essentially. And I asked him, I said, where are you going? He said, I'm going to Australia. And I said, well, God Almighty, he said, in a week's time, where will you be? He said, I'll be long gone. And I went to my car and I wrote the first song, was called Long Gone, which is the first song on my first album. And that's kind of how it started. I started to strum a bit more. I started to write a bit more. And yeah, that's really what got me started. It was and I wrote it in a cliche on the back of a cigarette packet in my car in that train station. I wrote the words just flowed out of me, and that was the first time I realized, oh yeah, maybe I can do this.
What is one thing that you most enjoy about music?
Say again.
What is one thing that you most enjoy about music?
What do I enjoy most about it?
Yes.
I Well, first of all, I think the primary thing I enjoy most is playing with other musicians up on the stage, a live music. That energy that you get on the stage, you hear about it a lot when you're not in, when you haven't been on the stage, and you kind of think, maybe that's just, they're like actors that they're little sort of romanticizing the situation. But no, when you're on stage and it's going well and everybody's on the beat, there's nothing more magical. There really is. There's no drug, no nothing. You just such. It's what I call making the atoms dance.
Absolutely. If you could duet with any singer, who would it be and why?
It would probably be John Prine, although poor he's not with us anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to sing with. I would have loved to sing. Although a very good friend of mine who was my neighbor when I was growing up as a kid, and is also a very well known country musician in this part of the world, Chris Meehan. He actually, John Prine duetted with him on one of his songs on an album he released in 1990, and it's just beautiful. And I thought, wow, imagine, from our little small town to him playing with John Prine, it was a pretty big leap.
Where can people find you on social media, Ronan?
Get me on Facebook, Roland Gallagher Music, or Roland Gallagher. I have two different pages, and I have a web page, RolandGallagherMusic.com. Um, and don't mind all that FBI Most Wanted stuff. That's not me, really, honestly.
Do you have any new singles or any upcoming projects that we can
Yes, I have a new
look
single
forward to?
coming out. Yes, I have a new single coming out. My current album, Time Waits for No One, has just been released last month. Um, and I have a new single from that coming up in the next 2 weeks called Argumental Man. Um, and I'm already working on a third album. I'm actually, as I said today, was up in a place called Bundoor, and I live here in the west of Ireland, northwest of Ireland, and the journey, the drive I take up to my recording studio is a drive to die for. It's a beautiful drive through glens and beautiful country, and so by the time you get to the studio, you're already in shape for recording and for music.
Hmm. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
A few years ago, I used to see myself playing Glastonbury and all the top. But now actually I've mellowed a bit, and now I see myself continuing to make good music. That's what I want to do. I want to write good songs. I want to find good musicians to work with me. I want to create good albums. I love the recording process as well. I mean, I really think recording an album is a whole art form in itself. Um, and I also, what? I also think just I would like to mention Tom T. Hall. He passed a couple of days ago. One of the great songwriters, Watermelon Wine, and some of the most wonderful, and what a beautiful singer he was. He passed the other day. And I just like to mention that mainly because I remember his songs when I was a kid. I heard them on the radio, and you just understood this man could tell a wonderful story, and you began to understand that you don't just sing country music; you feel it, and people feel it. It's not something you just sing; you actually feel it. And boy, did he feel it.
Absolutely. What are your hobbies and interests outside of music?
Photography would be a very big interest in mine. I do a lot of photography. Politics, which is not necessarily a hobby because it certainly gets you rankled up all the time. Um, that would be probably it. And science. I mean, I love astronomy, particularly planetary physics and interesting things like quantum physics and stuff like that. Science would be a big hobby. Not a hobby because it's not a hobby, but it would be certainly an interest in it. And I read a lot of stuff about it, and
Yeah, for sure. What advice would you give someone that might want to start singing?
sing, start singing. I mean, the biggest fear you had, and probably the biggest thing that stopped me for years, was the fear that people would reject me and that I wouldn't be. It wasn't bravery or anything; it was more cowardice because I stayed quiet for so long. But once you get up and once you sing, and don't sing in front of somebody who'll be critical of you. Sing in some front at first time is, obviously practice and be ready for it. My first time I stood on stage and the first time I sang publicly to anybody, even my family didn't know I sang. They thought, what? He's going to have a band. He's going to sing. He doesn't do this. So my first time I played was I just got up on a stage. I practiced. It wasn't my own songs. I did covers. And I don't. Do you remember Suki? Not Buffy. The other one. What was it called? Blood something. Suki the vampire thing. There was a great song by Jace Everett in it called "Bad Things," but it's a really rock and country song. And I decided that would be the first song that I would do as a cover for my
Mhm.
first time to sing. And actually, it worked really well because it's one of those songs where it doesn't require a lot of you. If you keep a tune and keep your head, you get through it. And from then on, I just felt, okay, yeah, I can do this.
Did you play any instruments when you were in school? And if so, what'd you play?
I played piano and not very well. And in fact, the reason it wasn't very well, and I hadn't played guitar until I started music. Until I started my own music a few years ago, and I couldn't play up to then. And there are many who say that I still can't play, and that's probably true. I mean, I always say I'm not a musician. I'm a songwriter, and there is a difference
Mhm.
between musicians. There are songwriters who are musicians as well, but a musician to me is somebody who's very talented, who's very all over their instrument, they're crafted, they understand. I mean, you've probably seen this. There are
Mhm.
session musicians who go into studios and sit down and just crack out the stuff, but they do it with passion and they never underdo it. Um, so they're musicians. They're people who who understand. I'm not. I'm a songwriter. I can strum and I can keep a rhythm and I can do that. But that's all that's required of me to write songs. I'm lucky that I meet great musicians who then make my songs sound great, and that's a really lucky, precious thing to have.
Describe your creative process.
Say again.
Describe your creative process.
It's very simple. I pick up the guitar, I strum, and I fish for a song. And if I don't get one, I get a melody or I get something, and my phone is always beside me. I'll record something that I get down. I'll come back to it later. Or oftentimes I will find the song there and then I'll get it out. I'll always have a pen and paper. I'll have my phone, my guitar, and my plectrum. That's what I call the tools of the trade.
What is the best advice you've been given?
Best advice I was given was given to me by bass player James Blenner Hassett, who's played with Van Morrison and played with many great musicians and many of our great country stars here in Ireland. And it was very simple. He said, "Whatever you do, surround yourself with great musicians. Find great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's absolutely true." And he said, "If your songs are good enough, they won't mind coming to you. You know what I mean? If your songs are good enough, they will attract those musicians." And that was the best advice I took. And I took that very seriously when he said that.
Hmm. If you could go open a show for any artist, who would it be? Or your band or whatever?
If I was to open a show for any artist.
Yes.
Okay, well, alive or dead, if it was somebody who has passed with us, it would have been most likely Lowell George, Little Feat, one of my favorite bands of the 70s. Um, Somebody today, well, I say it would have been, it could be anybody from Dwight Yoakam, who I think is a wonderful. I just love Dwight Yoakam's music, uh, to Chris Stapleton, to the Soggy Bottom Boy. You know what I mean? Any of
Hmm.
those.
Hmm.
I just attracted to that sort of music, and the funny thing is, country music over here in Ireland is very, very big, and it's always been very big. And if you ever get to interview Garth Brooks, which I'm sure you may one day, you can ask him, and he'll tell you that it was Ireland that first gave him his break. He was not really that making it anywhere in America. He came to Ireland. We fell in love with him. He was going to have a series of concerts over here in our biggest stadium, and he could fill them out 3 or 4 nights in a row. 60, 70,000 people each night, no problem. And he was doing that here before he was doing it in America. And so much so that he recorded that famous video he made in Dublin as a sort of a tribute to pay back to the Irish people for their support. So country music is big over here, and we have our own form of country music as well called country and Irish, which is probably a little bit more sentimental.
Mm-hmm. What is one message they'd like to give your fans or anyone listening to this?
Music is the best medicine. Listen to music. If you like playing music, play music. But I think music is, I think it's much underrated. And I think, in fact, the pandemic and the lockdowns and all that stuff has actually brought forward to a lot of people, brought them back to music, because you get fed up watching YouTube videos and TV stuff all the time, especially when people are anxious, they turn to music. And I think a lot of people got turned back onto it. I think also that the internet and what we can do now, this Zoom interview that we can do, you can also play on the internet and live gigs. It has changed. There's been a paradigm shift. It's probably going to work better for the individual independent artist. It'll still be a struggle, but it gives us another tool to get out there. For me, for example, all your listeners who have never heard of Ronan Gallagher will after this interview tonight. And that's the magic of the internet. And that's the other wonderful thing about music too. It's universal language. If you have a truth in your music and a belief in it, other people will see that, hopefully, and they'll pick up on it, and you suddenly become fans. But that's, be truthful, I suppose, is the best thing, most honest thing you can say.
Is there anything else that I forgot they'd like to share with us today, Ronan?
Say again. Sorry, it's a bit fuzzy on the line here.
No worries. Is there anything else that I forgot they'd like to share with us today?
No, nothing much. I mean, we've covered most of what it is. It's just that, I mean, it's a very simple rule. I love music, and hopefully music loves me, and that's all. That's all we. The other thing is too that country music here in Ireland has had a long history. I mean, we should never forget that there is a connection between Ireland and country music. Our immigrants left here, they brought their fiddles, their tin fiddles, they went over, they migrated from New York, out of New York, across to the Appalachians, also all of that music came into the mix, then the blues. And if you go to Newfoundland, you'll find people over there who play traditional Irish music, just like our traditional musicians play it here. And you wouldn't know the difference. In fact, their accents are quite the same. And then if they go and they play Cajun and Creole, that came out of it. So there's a huge history to across, as I call the music across the pond, particularly from Ireland to America and Canada, and vice versa, back and forth. And I think that connection is great. I think it's important that we keep that.
Well, I just want to say a huge thank you to Ronan Gallagher for joining me right here on the Kayden Gordon Show, today's Best Country Mix. We appreciate your time to talk to us today, Ronan.
Thank you very much, Kayden. It really is great to get to talk to you. And hello to all your listeners out there. And hope you're all keeping well and enjoy all the music all the time.
Absolutely.
It's the best medicine.